As Daniel Dennett says in his book, Darwin's Dangerous Idea. Darwin's idea had been born as an answer to the question in biology, but it threatened to expand, offering answers welcomed or not, to questions in cosmology, going one direction back to the Big Bang, and psychology, going in the other direction to explain the human mind and spirit. Darwin's idea thus also threatened to spell all the way up, dissolving the illusion of our own authorship, our own divine spark, our own divine creativity and understanding. Darwin's dangerous idea has seeped into Western life in a number of subtle ways, slowly compromising the basis of our legal and political rights, but most people don't see it. If we are nothing more than the sum of chance, impersonal law, and the environment, then we are not free and responsible individuals, endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. Because we are not free, we are not responsible. So paradoxically, we can do whatever we want. We are no longer held accountable because we are mere animals. Now, it's interesting that the scientists, evolutionists, do differ on the details of the process of evolution. And I quote another author, "If rival models of evolution cannot even in principle explain complexity, Darwin's blind watchmaker model deserves to be called the theory of evolution." So some scientists think that Richard Dawkins' definition of evolution is the best. That's what his protege, Helena Cronin, wrote in her book, The Ant and the Peacock. She referred to Dawkins' model simply as modern Darwinism. Now, here we have another professor, Harvard professor Stephen Jay Gould, angrily disagreeing with Cronin's book. Gould denied that most evolutionary biologists accept the gene selection model as presented by Dawkins and declared that genes cannot possibly be the exclusive unit of selection. Gould asserted forcefully that most important bodily characteristics are emergent properties of organisms which are not produced in any direct way by individual genes of such complex interactions among genes. He says that they cannot even in principle be adequately known or predicted at the genetic level. The point is, Dawkins and Gould disagree. Now, it's interesting because Khalifa Masih Rabi, may Allah bless his soul, agrees with Gould, or maybe Gould agrees with him. Again, it should be emphasized here that the phenomenon of natural selection under changing environments does not possess any instrument of effecting internal cellular changes to suit the external requirements. The chromosomes and the character-bearing genes lie far beyond the reach of chaotic external changes. The natural laws which govern them are insulated from the whims of cold, of heat, of dryness, or humidity. They are two absolutely unrelated phenomena. So we have seen Dawkins and Gould publicly disagree over their respective theory of evolution. Dawkins says evolution must have been slow and gradual for the blind watchmaker to get the design work done. Gould says that the fossil record reveals that evolution work was not slow and gradual, but happened in what he calls geological instantaneous bursts. Therefore, both are right about the other's position, and therefore both are wrong about their own. It is not evolution that they are looking at, but the scientists use a new term, and they call it mediate progressive creation. And they'll use these elusive terms purposely to keep the idea of God or a creator out of the picture. Now, what story does the fossil record tell? Because that's the only story we have. Nobody's lived for billions of years and watched the evolutionary process take place, so we have to look at the fossil record. Now, Darwin recognized that the fossil record did not contain the fossils of these intermediate forms or transitional forms, or forms that show a mouse somehow evolved into an elephant. There should be a long fossil record of forms or life forms in between the two. And Darwin realized they were missing. In some terms, that's called the missing link. And again, Darwin states in The Origin of Life, The Origin of Species, the number of intermediate varieties which have formerly existed on the earth, must be truly enormous. However, why then is not every geological formation and every stratum full of such intermediate links? Geology assuredly does not reveal any such finely graduated organic chain, and this perhaps is the most obvious and gravest objection which can be urged against my theory. Charles Darwin from The Origin of Species. So Darwin admitted the fossil record did not support his theory. So now we look at what the paleontologists have to say, and paleontologists are the people who study the fossil records and study the bones. And they say, interestingly, almost all of the major living animal categories appear in the fossil record during what they call the Cambrian period, about 550 million years ago. This took place within a span of 5 to 10 million years, and it has been called the Cambrian explosion of life. Can we have the next slide, please? Okay, before the Cambrian explosion of life, this is what the fossil record shows. One-celled animals, very similar to the one-celled animals we still see in existence today. Most of the animal categories that are represented in the fossil record appear fully formed and identifiable as to their categories in the Cambrian period, as I said, back one slide please, about 550 million years ago. So when you look at 2 slides ago and you look at the slide they're going to put back up again, these life forms came out of nowhere. The slide before showed one-celled animals and plants. Here we have every species of animal that we categorize in the species today showing up in a span of 5 to 10 million years. So the suddenness of the appearance of animal life in the Cambrian period has been called the Big Bang of animal evolution by Scientific America. It's being called Evolution's Big Bang by Science Magazine, and the Biological Big Bang by Science News. Now, the Cambrian explosion of life is not the only explosion in the fossil record. Plant biologists have called the origin of plants an explosion, saying the spreading of land plant species is the land equivalent of the much-debated Cambrian explosion of marine plants. Vertebrate paleontologists believe there was a mammal explosion because of the few transitional forms between major mammal groups. Next slide, please. Others have called the origin of our own modern man a genetic revolution where no ape species is obviously transitional, leading one commentator to call it, like others called it, the Big Bang theory of human evolution. So the pattern of rapid appearance of diverse life forms without transitional forms, or the missing links, remains an important pattern in the fossil record and goes directly against Darwin's theory of evolution. So Gould and another scientist called Eldridge have formed a response to this difficulty, and they've coined a new term which I'll use as seldom as I possibly can because I can hardly pronounce it. They call this term punctuated equilibrianism. Now, this means, according to which there are long periods of no evolution whatsoever. For hundreds of millions of years, nothing changes, and then suddenly there's a period of very rapid evolution, and a whole new array of life forms seems to appear out of nowhere. Though it does make certain predictions, punctuated equilibrianism, which means rapid evolution, provides a poor way for proving Darwin's theory as a mechanism of evolution and confirming Darwin's strong predictions that intermediate stages of change existed. In other words, punctuated equilibrianism, rapid evolution, as taught by Gould and Eldridge, shows beyond a shadow of any doubt that Darwin was wrong. And finally, in 2001, there's an evolutionist named Ernest Mayr, and he wrote, "New species usually appear in the fossil record suddenly, not connected with their ancestors by a series of intermediates or missing links." It was thus confirmed that the fossil record did not contain